Morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and the whole wide world. This is High Coaches Network, and today is a milestone day for every one of us here because we have decided to come together from all over the world to have conversations around what we think is important to everyone. So join me in welcoming to the High Coaches Network, all the professional coaches who are in the High Coaches Network listening to us right now, and some of us who have decided from the High Coaches Network to engage in this conversation, which we'll be having from time to time. My name is Charles Okebuno, and welcome to the discussion. I would let my colleagues introduce themselves.
All
Ladies
right.
first.
We agreed on that last time, right?
Ladies first, after the men.
It's still our month, David. It's still our month. All right. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Zaina Fayoumi. I'm a certified coach, speaker, and disc trainer with John Maxwell team, and I'm delighted to be with you here today. Guys, it's such an honor, and I'm really delighted for our conversation and looking forward.
Drum roll.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Muraro Rambao. I'm a coach, a trainer, and a turnaround strategist. I am so excited to be part of this conversation this morning. Awesome.
All right.
Drum
Fantastic.
roll.
My name is David Bauer. This is also a milestone for me. First time on live on LinkedIn and all the other platforms that we're on. So, wow, great. So, I'm from I Need Expert. We basically help experts define who they are so that they can actually get hold of their customers that they need so that they can become successful in what they do. That's David, me from I Need Expert. Welcome, and it's great to be part of this show and part of this group of
Hello,
fantastic
David.
coaches.
Drum roll, David.
We all need experts, David. So, we definitely need you.
Speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, that which concerns us will be served last. I am in here from Nigeria, Lagos, to be precise. I would like to look at myself as a workplace transformer, but the main trust of what I think um, my purpose is to make people happy at work, happy to work, and happy for work.
Wow, that's great. That's such a nice information.
Awesome.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why we're here today is to be able to have conversations that are congenial and no holds barred around the subject entitled No Judgment. So we want to have this conversation because every one of us here as coaches um, have had opportunities by virtue of what we do to meet a lot of people and have a significant amount of experiences. So one of the things that will enrich our conversation today is to have you participate from wherever you're joining us from, LinkedIn or YouTube, etc., etc., and weigh in on the conversation. We're looking at the impact of judgment on our lives and on the society. And to start off, I'm just going to ask my colleagues in the room what their opinion is really when the word judgment bubbles up. At what point do we say this is really even what we're talking about? What is judgment, right? I'm going to ask Zaina to go first.
Yeah. Thank you, Charles, for the initiative. It was such a great thing to actually join to talk about such a thing because I believe it is definitely important to know where you stand and to know where everyone is. And definitely, judgment became, I don't want to say like more than it used to be, but with being available on all social media and everywhere, like people who are definitely influencers or not even influencers, they do get judged sometimes, and it does hurt sometimes, and it does leave a trace out there. So, what is judgment at the end of the day? Now, judgment is more of thoughts that you have on other people, thoughts on why did they do that or why did they behave this way. And it helps us answer questions. Because at the end of the day, we are creatures who are curious. and you want to know why is this happening. So when you start judging them, you start labeling them, and then you have answers in your mind. And then you start thinking, all right, this is why this someone is like doing this or behaving this way. And at the end of the day, it saves you the energy of thinking or understanding what is actually happening there. And I remember it's a quote by Carl Jung, who said that thinking is hard, judging is easy. And
Mm.
you can easily walk in the morning to talk to your peer at work, and you say good morning, and he or she doesn't answer the way they usually do. And here you have two situations. You either say, all right, maybe he's having or she's having a hard day, or maybe there is something at work, or maybe there is something that's not going on with them. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt at the end of the day. And this is going to be what we call situational judgment. Or you can just say this person is mean and this person is very rude and it's unkind. It's like I just said hi, or why he or she didn't reply to me. Now, in both situations, you just gave yourself the answer. It's like, this is why, because we like to have answers. We
Mm.
don't like uncertainties. And then the effect of each one of them is definitely huge, because if it's situational, it's going to be such a short term, and the second day you're going to go on and say hi to the person, knowing that he is or she are going to be a better mood and things will go on. But if you actually decided to do that, like, and you label his personality of being rude or mean or unkind, well, in this case, it's gonna be long term, and it's gonna stick to this person for a long time, and then you're not gonna be able to have an effective communication. Because if you think of it, when I judge someone and I say this person is rude or mean or unkind, I am blocking the way to communicate with this person again. But if I take the time and energy to understand why this happened, or why this person is acting this way, where do they come from at the end of the day, I'd be able to have a better communication. Because this is it, it all sums up to the way we communicate with people. We are creatures that like to network, right, David? So
Mhm.
if you are actually judging someone, you're not going to give yourself the chance to network, to communicate, and then you're going to be living in your shell, like in your own mind, in your own scenarios.
Mm.
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 Mm. That's profound. But I found what one thing very powerful you said is about the fact that it's easy to judge.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
hard to
It's
think.
the easiest
It's
thing to do,
easy
because
to
yeah, yeah, because
easy to
you
judge.
don't you don't want to you don't want to think about it. You don't want to think like, why is this person having a bad day, or why is he like, I've been saying good morning to this guy for 5, 6, 7 years, and like, why this day? It's like he cannot turn out to be unkind like one day or not. But yeah, it's easy. It's a
Mm.
natural thing, by the way, because your brain is wired to have answers, and you want to have answers at all times. And regardless if these answers are based on facts sometimes or not, you just want to have answers. But if you are aware of that, and this is the point over here. So if we are naturally wired to judge, if we are aware of that fact, if you are
Mm.
aware that you are naturally gonna judge, all right, so I am aware of that. So let me see what I'm gonna do. Let me spend some energy, some time, some effort to understand where is this person coming from. And imagine a world where everyone is giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. Still, definitely to be proven, it's like, okay, that was not it, but give the others the benefit of the doubt, because you are naturally wired to judge.
Mm.
Mm. Now, speaking of which, David, what are your thoughts about the word in general, judgment?
Well, I've got a poem here about judgment, and I think it's quite apt just to put it out there. So I'm going to read it. All right. So it starts like this: In the court of life, we all stand accused, judged by others with opinions and views. Based on their biases and preconceived notions, their perceptions colored by past emotions. Now, that in itself is basically identifies, that here we are. And as we go out in life and we meet people, people judge us. They all do. Everyone judges. What is the person wearing? What cultural background do they come from? How do they speak? How do they dress? How do they present themselves? And all those judgments that we pass are actually coming from our own point of view, from
Yes.
our own knowledge, from what we've actually got. So, one of the things that I've always learned in life, if someone judges you, they're actually looking at a mirror because they're actually seeing themselves. It's actually seeing themselves. So the second verse of the poem goes, "We try to defend ourselves, but to no avail. Our words and actions put on trial. We scrutinized and analyzed with a critical eye, and our flaws and mistakes are brought to light." So again, it all shows that people see us as they see themselves. And then the next verse is, "But who are they to cast the first stone, to judge and condemn when we are not alone? In their own time, in their own imperfections, they too must atone for the mistakes and errors they also are known." So again, it's all about the fact that here's this person, they're judging us, and yet they see us as a reflection of themselves. And then I'll continue. The next one is, "Let us not be quick to judge or harsh in our ways, but instead seek understanding, empathy each day. For we are all flawed and prone to mistakes, and in the end, it's kindness and love that truly makes." So I think that's really the power of what it's all about. You know, one of the things my mom always used to say to me is, always when you look at a person, think about perhaps what's happened to them in their day.
Yeah.
You know, don't just go along and, oh, well, you know, he's not actually very nice to me or something like that. Think about maybe why he's not being nice. Maybe he's had a terrible experience that morning, or something's happened to him and he's focused on that. He's not focused on you, but the fact is that they might be not in a good mood, or maybe they're a very happy mood. So the last verse goes, "So let us not judge, but rather seek to understand and show compassion and forgiveness hand to hand. For in the court of life we all stand accused, and only by love and understanding can we truly be excused." So
Wow, that's
thank
perfect.
you.
Yes.
Powerful. So much packed into that poem.
Yeah. True.
I mean, well, you know, there's several parts of that poem that we're going to unpack in this course of this conversation, because it seems more like the author went deep down in the judgment. And I like us to see it from all the perspectives that possibly could exist. You know, when a person says I'm judged, is it always negative? You know, and things like that. So we're looking at the word judgment objectively without judgment, right? So morale,
Let's judge our judgment.
right? Let's look at the word judgment without judgment.
That's self-awareness. That's a deep thing to do.
All right. So Molaro, tell us what you think.
So, looking at and piggybacking on what we are discussing, we have, I believe, you know, ever since we discussed this topic, I've gotten to learn and understand that we have looked at judging in a negative way, because that is how we've experienced it in society. But we do need to make decisions based on the information before us, on things that are happening before us. So I need to make a decision either way. So I do have to judge it, but it doesn't mean it's a negative connotation, because I'm using what I understand, what I have carried in my life, where I've gotten in all my experiences, all my knowledge, to a point where I need to make a decision about a particular situation or a particular person. So it's all about decision making. It's not necessarily saying, oh, you bad or you good, you this, you the other. It's about, what can I draw from the situation or the statement or the conversation? I shared with Charles this morning a video that, I mean, talk about everything on earth conspiring to support this conversation. This morning on LinkedIn, I get a video that shows how you can misjudge somebody because of the way they look and believe that they belong in a particular place, in a particular construct. And yet they are actually one of the people you think very highly of. But because you've never met them, you've only known their name, you cannot reconcile the individual, how they look with what you know about them, either on social media or in a social construct. So it is imperative for us not to jump into conclusion based on what we are fed, but to get to know the individuals. As a trainer and a coach, we often share with a group of coaches that you will experience what you're going to teach or what you're going to speak about. So my second experience this morning is with a group of people. Somebody posted something. And for the last few weeks, I've been going through a process where I've had to almost look at my thoughts and things I say about myself and ask myself the question, who told me this is who I am? Who told me this is how I'm coming across? Who told me this is bad about me, or it's even bad? So I shared with the individual after they shared something very negative about themselves. And immediately somebody else said, but the truth is this does happen, so stop deceiving yourself. And I'm putting emphasis on that because as I read it, that's the voice I heard in my ear, that person was harsh, they were unloving, the way they responded to me. So I got my feelings hurt. And I was about to throw my toys out of the court. And Holy Spirit said to me, what are you discussing today? And that is judgment. So I judged how that individual responded to me. So all three of you have spoken about what is that individual experiencing that has led them to respond the way they did. So now I had to track back, even as you are speaking, and have that post in mind and say, oh, ouch, maybe they went through something very trying that is similar to what the original poster went through. So maybe let me not judge them and rather have empathy and say, I'm sorry you seem to feel this way, but truth versus fact is you are stating a fact, but truth is we choose who we are. We choose how we show up. We choose how we speak about ourselves. And how we speak about ourselves, that's how everybody will speak about us and to us. So, yeah.
Powerful, powerful. You know what I just did as you were speaking and sharing your personal experience? I began to think to myself, Charles, what is judgment to you? Because, you talk about the whole earth conspiring to have this conversation. I tell you, we don't know. There's this scary thing that when you talk about something, your algorithms on your tablet, your phone, your laptop picks it up. And then
Yeah, definitely. It's all over.
but then again, you then begin to experience life. Because in Lara's case, she's saying, I'm experiencing life and I'm saying to myself, hey, looks like I'm judging here. So that's not about the algorithm. That's about your daily experience. And I thought to myself, perhaps judgment really means reaching a conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, can we think or talk about your judgment quotient, which will then be how should you race to conclusions? How do you race to conclusions? Because from all that everyone is saying here right now, it does appear a brilliant perspective from Lara about you needing to judge based on information. All right. But what about when we now bring it home to judging people? So thinking of the judgment quotient now, when it comes to judging people, should you be as fast? When it comes to judging a situation, what should be your judgment quotient?
You see, from my point of view, I look at it from this, judgment. As a noun, what does it actually mean? It means the ability to make a considered decision and to come up with a sensible conclusion. Now, that could be a positive thing or a negative thing.
Yeah.
However, there's another meaning of judgment. It's a misfortune or a calamity viewed as divine punishment. So, unfortunately, judgment's got a negativity to it that when you say you judged, it's got a bit of like, but yet judgment can also be a very positive thing because it's a conclusion to a sensible conclusion that you've come up with, given the facts that you've got with you. So I think we must look at it from those 2 points of view. It's not just a punishment, though.
Right.
People, when they hear the
it
word,
is
they
the
think it's a
effect
negative.
of thinking. Yeah, it is the effect of thinking or not thinking, trying to understand or jumping to conclusions. It all goes back to what energy or how much energy you are trying to put in the situation. So whenever you're going to judge a situation to take a decision, let's say related to a business or related to a long-term relationship, whatever, you're going to spend so much time thinking and having energy put in that situation in order to come up with a conclusion. But if you're just going fast, you just want to take a decision quick. It's like, all right, he's unkind, he's not sweet, I'm not doing this business with them, and that's it. Because it all goes back to how much energy and how much time are you trying to spend to come up with that decision again. And I love the thing that what you guys said is like, it all goes back to what you are thinking of yourself. So imagine someone who wakes up in the morning saying, I'm not good enough. I don't see myself beautiful. I don't see myself achieving this. I don't think I'm fit. I don't think. How do you think this person is gonna deal with others when you're gonna meet the world? So it's definitely a reflection of what you are. If I don't see myself, if the most important thing is myself, I'm not valuing myself. How do I value others? So whatever I'm gonna say about others, definitely gonna be negative. He's not kind. She's so superficial. He's so sophisticated, etc. So it down back to whatever you think of yourself, and your upbringing sometimes might have a role in that, and the environment that you've surrounded yourself with. But definitely that requires a lot of thinking in order to come up with a good judgment. And that answers David's idea. Yeah, definitely it could have a positive thing, but it has to be like starting with good understanding and efforts.
Powerful.
Yes. So, Charles, just to respond to the question you asked, should we be quick? And I think it depends on the situation. There are some situations where decisions are needed to be made very quickly, but that doesn't take away diligence and understanding. I think two of you spoke earlier on is we make comments or we react or respond to situations based on our understanding. And as he said, upbringing can play a role. I've said your experience of a similar or the same situation previously can what they say, it can cloud your judgment. So if you've had a bad experience with a particular race or a particular tribe, your body can't help it when you walk into that environment, if you haven't dealt with that situation, to respond in a particular manner. So what's important for us is to take each situation, each experience, and delve deeper and do the self-work so that we release any preconceived ideas, any experiences that we judge as either good or bad, so that when we show up in a similar environment, we show up with newness, with always showing up at that moment, at that time, and do as best as we can, not to bring everything with us that can limit us and prevent us from, I'll put it in quotes, good judgment, maybe.
Now that's very true. We do carry a lot of packages, throughout. And if every time you're gonna come on with the situation is like having these prejudgments in your mind, like you're not starting anything new. You're just repeating the whole cycle again. And this is why sometimes you feel people get this aha moment. It's like this is when I left all my prejudgments and I went in, as Bilal said. It's like fresh, new into a relationship, into a situation, and I'm ready to judge it perfectly, the way it should be.
Interesting. And just before we continue, for all those who are logged on and are watching us, we're trying to define the word judgment before we begin to swim in it. And so, you're listening to us on YouTube, on LinkedIn. What does judgment mean to you? When you see the word, what does judgment mean to you as a person? I mean, outside the dictionary definition, what is your um, inclination to judgment? Whenever you hear judgment, do you always think negative? Or do you think positive? Or do you think both? Because this is getting more and more interesting, given that we started out discussing about the impact of judgment. And from just defining judgment, it seemed like it was about something negative, right? And then only for us to find out that maybe not, maybe not. And then I spoke of the judgment quotient just before the, the words were thrown in about how we see ourselves. When Z shared with us that you can wake up in the morning and just say, "Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't make it. Oh, can I do this?" So, your judgment quotient. I want us to speak to that. It's because someone reached out to me early this morning and just said to me, "Why the why was I burned into a weekend wall?" Something that sounded like that. Um, to be more specific, okay. And I want us to look at it from that perspective. He says, I ask why I have to be deemed fit to appear in this cruel world. Now, these are the exact words of someone to me today. Now, what do you think of that, David?
Sure. It reminds me of a story, and I think judgment is it's not just the way you think; it's the way you act as well. Because if you wake up in the morning, I'll give you like a short story.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up this person wakes up in the morning. He's had a sleepless night. He's not feeling great, and his judgment of himself is not great.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes downstairs, and his daughter's having breakfast, and the daughter's spilled some milk on the table, on the breakfast table. And what happens is he gets upset about that. He gets upset and he speaks to his daughter badly. He says, "Why do you always spill the milk on the table?" And he takes a cloth and he aggressively basically wipes it up. Then his wife comes down and he then climbs into his wife and says, "Can't you control your child?" And the judgment of himself is now rubbed off on his daughter. The daughter goes off to school upset. The wife is now not that happy with him. There's been a bit of conflict. He now gets into the car and he starts driving to work. We've all heard about road rage. And there's a taxi that's pulled out in front of him. Something happens in South Africa very often. And he gets upset with the taxi driver. And he gets to work. And now his day is actually spoilt for the rest of the day. And when he gets home that night, he sees a note, "Dinner's in the fridge, we've gone out." Okay? So that's one scenario. The other scenario is that he has a sleepless night. He gets up in the morning, he comes downstairs, he sees his daughter spilled some milk. So he takes a cloth, wipes it, and says, "Are you okay? Have you got enough milk? Can I give you some more breakfast?" So now that his judgment is he's internalized it, he's keeping his own actions to himself. He's not spreading the bad feeling that he has to others. And now he goes along and his wife comes down and gives her a kiss on the cheek and they go off to have a great day. He goes to work, a taxi drives in front of him, he's calm, he lets the taxi go off. He goes, has a fantastic day at work. He comes home and his wife's cooked him a fantastic meal and his daughter runs out to say hello to him. So because of his actions on how he judged himself in the morning, he's got two routes. He's got two choices.
Sure.
He's got two choices. The choice one is he internalizes his own judgment and he says, "I'm okay," and everyone else is okay. The other one, he says, "I'm not okay," and everyone else is not okay. And by doing that, I see it as it's an internalized action that you've got a choice. You've got a choice how you behave. And how you actually act that judgment out of when you wake up and when you actually take through the rest of your day. Uh, I don't know if that helped. I think that story was very powerful for
That's
me,
definitely, definitely.
and
Yes.
it makes me think about, when I get up in the morning, how I should act, how should I
Yeah.
behave,
And it's
and
a
how I
snowball,
should do it.
It's like how you're carrying out throughout the day. It's gonna be a snowball. Like even when he goes to work, or when the kid's gonna go to work, and it's all life is not what it's like what happens to you, but how you're gonna react to it. It's like we
Mm-hmm.
all have these feelings. It's like we should do more. Like we had a sleepless night. You are working on something and it's not working out. But if you are self-aware for a minute, it's like, all right, this didn't happen. I'm supposed to have it, but I didn't. Maybe for a reason. Maybe I should start again. And you pull yourself together. Because once you do, and you collect your thoughts, it's like, okay, today is a good start. Like we are trying again, and I'm gonna go through it. And this is how you're gonna carry on life positive, being the light in everyone's life. It's not easy, and it's not something that you like easier said than done. But if you are self-aware and you are not on autopilot, because this is what we are. It's like you sleep, you wake up, and it's like you're on autopilot. You don't stop for a moment and think like Mulalo said, you stop for a moment and you think, and how is this gonna affect me? How is this gonna affect the person in front of me? What if I was in their shoe? What if something's happening with them? What if and you stop for a moment and think? It's like, yeah, you're gonna break the cycle somewhere, and you're gonna talk to this person differently, and you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
talk to your daughter differently, and this is gonna break the cycle. You're not gonna go all in a vicious cycle.
Now, speaking of which, Z, aside the fact that David said judging is how we act, are we going to take it out of the fact that it is also the way we think? Olalo?
Yes, it's definitely the way we think. Because how you respond is what you have thought
Hmm.
about what either has happened or what has been said to you. So if I go back to my example about the post where I felt it wasn't loving, where I
Mhm.
felt that I was personally attacked,
Mhm.
it's what I thought that person thinks of my post that made me react in that manner. If I didn't think anything of it, I wouldn't catch any feelings. But my first reaction was, this person thinks I'm uninformed, because part of what they mentioned is don't be deceived.
Hmm.
So at that moment, I'm thinking they think I'm either stupid or uninformed, or I didn't think through what I shared. And I shared my heart, I shared my experiences, and they write two sentences. And I'm thinking the audacity, you write two sentences, blah, 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 don't be deceived. And I go into, who the do you think, I
Mhm.
put emotions into this thing. I exposed myself, and I poured my heart out. And here you just come in two sentences and rubbish this thing that I shared. It all has to do with what I thought that individual meant.
Hmm.
And what is important in that situation is either seek clarity
Mhm.
or go back and say, I'm so sorry that person feels that way, but I hope the person I was addressing got it, and you move on, because your thought patterns have an impact on whether you react or you respond to a situation.
Hmm.
And that's also, a dynamic that I thought about as we were preparing for this is, how often do we stop and respond as opposed to reacting? Because what I've got to understand over the years is that when you catch feelings, you react.
Hmm.
But when you sit down and you process something, you respond. And those two are very different ways of acting or communicating. Because when you don't react and you respond, you are able to either dim down or remove the emotional element of how you're going to communicate, so that
Hmm.
you bring understanding as opposed to proving that you are right. So
Hmm.
I had to stop and say, okay, I've already told that person that I don't believe their response is loving and kind. And I
Mhm.
had a whole lot of other responses, you know, prepared, but I've chosen not to send them until I've spent a few good hours digesting my emotions. And then I know that when I then share again, I would have dealt with that emotion that felt offended
Hmm.
and disrespected, and then communicate in my truth and not with facts. I don't know if that helps.
But it does help a great deal. And I'm picking out from your conversation the point that when you catch feelings, you find yourself
Kaboom.
reacting. But when you process what is going on, you respond. Because I like the trend of this conversation now because it then tilts towards how should we judge?
Mm, mm,
How should we judge? How do we judge effectively? And then how do we make the most out of the subject of
Mm.
judging, right? Um, it looks like judgment is inevitable. Is that correct, David? Or does anyone think about it? Z, is judgment inevitable? Are there times when you say to yourself, you can't help but judge? Does it ever happen?
Yeah, because as mentioned before, your brain is wired to take, like, you don't want to live in uncertainty, Charles. You want to know answers, and the easiest way to do that is to judge the situation. And I loved what Mulalo said. You are giving the opportunity or the chance either to react or to respond, and it all
Mhm.
goes back to the weight you're gonna put on the words. So when someone's gonna judge you and says like one, two, three, four, and you have the chance, either you're gonna put weight to these words, or you're gonna just empty them from the words, and from any meaning. And when you empty them from any meaning, okay, you're gonna go on and as if it's nothing, and it did not actually happen. Again, it's a matter of choice. You choose that you want to do that or you don't want. You know.
Okay, but Z, if I take you on that, does judgment therefore have to always be positive?
Always be positive. Well, again, you have to choose. You can take whatever this person said, and then you're gonna take a moment and think, like Molalo said, as like, is this something that really ticks in? Is this something that I should benefit from, or whatever he said was simply unkind for the sake of being unkind, or whatever he is actually going with? And if there is some truth to that, maybe I should look into it. Maybe I should take it as a light, as like, okay, maybe there's something I should do over here. And if not, well, I'm the one who's gonna judge it at the end of the day. I'm gonna be the one responsible for the action I'm gonna do. So
Okay.
yes, everything can have a positive side at the end of the day.
Okay.
I love what Zia said, Charles, because if you go back to what David said,
Mhm.
I also looked up the definition of judgment.
Mhm.
It has a positive and a negative connotation.
Yeah.
And again, the stories that David has been telling shows
Mm.
the ability or the decision to choose.
Mm.
So I can even say the choice to choose,
Mm.
Yeah,
if there's such a thing.
we're blessed with
So
choice, definitely.
yes,
We're
yes,
blessed.
whatever situation we are faced with, it's up to us what we allocate to it,
Mm.
what we assign it as, what level of importance we are going to give it.
Mm.
And that determines whether we react or respond, or the level of reaction or response that we want to allocate to it.
Mm.
Things are going to be thrown at you in life.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, true.
You are the only one who determines how important they are or how unimportant they are, how they impact you or how they don't impact you. You always have the power to choose. And I have had to learn to come out of the helpless mentality.
Mm.
You said it, Charles. Or was it Z? Life does not happen to you. The rest of the sentence states that where I've learned it is life happens for you. It's
Wow.
how you
That's
think
so
about
deep,
it.
Lalo. That's
It's
beautiful.
how
You
you
know?
judge it, whether it's going to be happening to you or for you.
Mm.
It's up to you. So I am the individual that decides whether I allocate good or bad to any situation.
Hmm.
Mm.
So,
That's so
is there
good.
anyone in the room who's ever judged themselves harshly?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, definitely we do. We're humans,
Morning.
coaches and
That's
humans.
Who wants to share? You judge yourself harshly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you're tuning in. I want you to ask your questions, make your contributions or observations. We're talking about judging. Um, Ever judged yourself or ever judged others? And then we're looking at the impact of when a person is judging on themselves and the society. So you can weigh in on this conversation at any time. I'm monitoring all the platforms, and I would, bring your questions or contributions forward. So, but right now we're entering that phase where physician heal thyself. Um, Ever judge
Charles,
yourself? Actually, tell us a story. Yes,
Charles, I just like
Charles, you can go ahead.
David's got a guest.
I've got a guest. I've got a special guest that has just arrived. Wilhelm Lombard. He's a life energy coach, and
Oh wow!
he heard
Hi.
about this event and he said he's coming to participate. So if I can just introduce Wilhelm, he's a
You're
life energy
welcome.
coach, and he deals with the energy. So we're talking about judgment, and yeah. So if you would like to participate, please go ahead.
Say
Thank
something. Do give
you.
us some energy because the next question we need energy to answer it.
Yes, yes. No, for sure. I just think about one of the things that drain your energy that we sometimes do is by comparing us with other people. The
Wow,
moment
that's
when you compare yourself, you will always be the loser
mm,
because we
Mm.
are unique. We should never compare. And the thing is now, when you compare yourself and you are the loser, you drain your energy out of your system and you feel, oh, I'm not good enough. I will never be like that person. And that's a big energy draining factor in our lives. So we must take care of that. And that's my quick share.
I love what Helen said because the moment that you're gonna feel that this person is better than me, you know what's the next thing that you're gonna do? You're gonna judge them. They're superficial, they're not good enough, etc. Because this is where it starts. That's a beautiful thing, Helen. Thank you for sharing.
Wow, 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 wow. So comparing leads to, even judging yourself.
Yeah.
If only I had this opportunity, I'd probably be like them if I was hard enough, if I was whatever it is, powerful. Thank you, Coach, for sharing that with us. Now we've gotten the energy to talk about when we judge ourselves harshly. Who wants to go?
I'll go first.
All right.
All right. So I always judge myself that I'm not physically active enough. I always say I'm a lazy person, and I've been saying that for so long. And every time I put myself like I'm gonna put a routine, I'm gonna start working out, and I'm gonna start doing this and doing that, I find excuses not to. And in my back mind, I know that the word I am lazy. I just like to sit on my computer doing my network all over here, but I'm not gonna wear my training shoes and I'm just gonna walk outside. I believe because I've been feeding myself this info for quite some time that I'm trying now to uncover like what is the real reason behind it, and I'm working on this a lot. Uh, because I want to understand why do I say this about myself? Like, why am I lazy? I'm not lazy, and I try to surround myself, as you said, Charles. Sometimes when you have this idea, like if you look at my feed, whether it's Instagram or I don't know, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever, it's like I see people working out. I was like, I'm encouraged, like, yeah, I'm gonna be able to do that one day, and I'm surrounding myself with this energy, like Helen said, because you're gonna attract it. So I'm just throwing out there. I want to start working out again.
So we're gonna diagnose that, right? We're
Okay.
gonna diagnose that because you
Analyze
see,
it, you guys.
you get people. Everybody have has anyone had the experience? People call you and say, um, I'm not good with names.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
They call you, and then they start off with that definition of who they are. So they reach that conclusion, and I'm asking the question: is there a better way? Because that is their reality. Is there a better way to go about it without living in deception? Hold the thought, don't
Hmm.
answer that. But when a person tells you, I'm lazy, because they know that they have done things, or they know they don't follow through with what they could and are capable of doing, right? That is their reality. But is there anything else they could have said so that they are not in deception? Hold the thought, because we're coming back to it. We're really talking about when you've judged yourself harshly. So who's
Yeah.
going next?
Can
I'll
I?
go next.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
So growing up, I was always told I'm not the most beautiful. So I've carried that thing. I'm not beautiful. I'm just average. And I used to use that line in interviews. And I would say to the interviewer, I hope you've got enough work for me because I can't sit and look beautiful. I don't wear makeup. I don't do that. And I don't do that. So to the extent that it's very difficult for me to pay attention to the way I look.
Hmm.
You don't know how many times I debated, should I wear contact lenses today? Should I even put lipstick on? Should I put my earrings on?
Oh.
How important it is, and who's going to be looking, and why would I want them to be? So I go through all of that regularly.
Mm.
And like Z said, I have fed myself this thing that I'm not beautiful, therefore I must be good for something else.
Hmm.
And I found solace in working. So I would work myself to the bone.
Oh.
I would really push the hours. In a 24-hour day, I would work 17 hours because I had to make up for
Yeah.
that thing that I was, that was created in my mind, that women only get ahead because of their looks.
Yes.
We know as women we go through that environment. And it's taken a long time for me to start reversing that, but I still find it coming up to say, what is my value proposition? Because I'm not a beautiful girl.
Hmm.
I don't say I'm ugly, but I don't define myself as beautiful either.
Hmm.
So I've always got to push myself to have a different value proposition because I know I don't bring that into the table. So whenever somebody says you are absolutely stunning, I think, liar, what do you want? So that is me judging myself rather harshly.
Oh
Wow,
boy.
that was a beautiful share. Thank you so much for going so deep. Wow, that's powerful.
Very deep. So
Yeah.
Dave, the uh the Russian roll is on you right now.
Well,
The
I
Russian
want
roll
to tell you.
is on you right now.
I want to tell a story. A story. It's a true story. When I was small, my mom used to always say something to me. She said to me, if I was saying something like, I'm not good enough, or I don't know how to do this, she said to me, you must be careful what you're saying, because when the wind changes, the wind direction changes, it becomes true. And I tell you what, this made me really scared, because now I realize that if I said it again and the wind changed, it would then be true. And by her actually doing that, there's a lot of things that I used to say that I don't say anymore. I didn't become to believe them because, I would maybe use it as a victim approach, or, because I was like, I felt sad or depressed. I'd say something like, I can't do that, or whatever. And my mom said, careful, if the wind changes, it becomes true. And that in itself made me feel, oh, gee, Okay, I must correct that. I mustn't say that. And it really made me rethink about what I needed to say, rather, because if the wind changed, it would become true. So I tried to put more positive things into my mindset. And it was, as a child, it really worked on me. And so there's a small technique that my mother used, knowing or unknowing, but it worked.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It has a lot of self-awareness again.
Right. Yeah.
Aware of
Yeah.
what you're saying,
Exactly. So, which is the point? Okay, because remember, I asked the question. I agree, self-awareness. For example, if I'm in a group of people and they're looking for leaders, and they say, "Oh well, we're going to have this lead person leading this group, this leading that group. This person is going to be in charge of organizing. Who's going to be in charge of handling finances?" I duck. Don't choose me. Don't choose me. I won't steal the money, but I won't be able to account for it. And here's the point, and from my high school days, I recall an unsavory experience where I was. So I'm always chosen as a leader, even when I don't want to lead, without making any significant effort, right? So, and then in the high school, if you're the leader, you collect money, you're the treasurer, you're the financial secretary, you're everything. Now, we needed to buy chalks and etc. and etc. So people began to contribute, and I couldn't account for the money. And I began to look for ways to cover up the tracks. I didn't steal it, but somebody apparently knew or found out that I wasn't careful enough to keep the money, and of course began to pilfer that money. And so, but who's going to believe you? I gave you this X amount. If you spent Y amount, where's the balance? That scarred me significantly. So much so that if I got into a group and it had to do, because if I take, okay, I'm in Nigeria, so we spend naira. If I take five, if it is 20 naira, everybody needs to contribute, and I take 20 naira from you, and you say, "Can I give you 15 naira?" and 5 naira later, I'm finished. That's all. I don't know who paid how. I'm done. I'm in trouble.
You're done.
So, I said, let me lead, but don't ask me to collect money for anybody. Look for that, and that has set up right on my head. And because of that, I'm very, very uncomfortable when it comes to financial records. Okay. And so, and that's why I want us to circle back to each areas where we have judged ourselves harshly. Oh, I'm not good with money, right? Oh, I'm lazy. Oh, I'm not beautiful. Oh, I think maybe I'm not able to do that thing. What do you do? How do you get out of that hole where you judge yourself harshly and then you augment for it, just like Morano said, in a very difficult way? So you don't even, because you think you're not beautiful, you don't even bother to make up. Who cares? Let's just go and do the thing, right? Meanwhile, it is those who aren't beautiful that ought to look beautiful, while those who are beautiful shouldn't bother making up. So you find those who are beautiful making up and spending hours in front of the mirror. You're already king. Why do you need a lucky charm?
Yes, Chelsea, you're very right. It took years of healing inner work. So I had to deal with, one of the things I had to deal with was rejection, because that is how it manifested. It manifested as rejection. So I was rejected. I felt rejected. So I went through a healing journey to forgive all those that have ever said to me, I'm not beautiful, including myself. So forgiving myself was the hardest part of it all. Of all the negative things I said to myself because of my looks, So I had to look myself in the mirror, and I did mirror work, which is part of what I use when I'm coaching people that are going through similar things. Mirror work, where I will encourage the coachee to stand in front of the mirror and actually look at themselves. I didn't even own a full-length mirror. For years, I did not own a full-length mirror. So I had to buy a mirror when I was doing this healing work, and I would have to look at myself and say to myself, "You are beautiful." And tears would come down my eyes. I would weep for hours. So that is how the healing journey started. And now I don't even think, well, I'll have a moment like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. How should I dress? Should I do this? Should I do that? And when I'm away from my siblings, I will wear different outfits, put on different types of makeup and earrings, and send them pictures. And they say, which one is the best? I've got a
Yeah.
thing. So how do I dress? And I've now turned it into something that is fun, that I do with people that I feel safe with, because they understand that journey. So I had to invite certain people to come into my journey so that I could share with them what I went through with that statement, "You're not beautiful," and where it took me throughout my life. And as I healed, they healed as well. I healed. We became more, more fused as a family, as friends. And now it's a joke. I'll say, "Oh, and I'm not the most beautiful of the sisters." They go, "Yeah, we know, just sit down." And then, that's the end of it. We've
End
dealt
of
with
story.
Yep.
Powerful. Now,
Powerful, really.
we need to welcome people who are joining us from different parts of the world. Abiola is on LinkedIn. Welcome, Abiola. And then I need to say that we're talking about um, judging ourselves harshly. So share your story. Have you ever judged yourself harshly? Share your story. If you're from whatever part of the world you're connecting with us from, and how you got out of it. Okay. And I want to ask you, Z, how did you get out of it? Or how are you getting out of it?
Yeah, that's what Molalo said is really touching and really inspiring for me just to get out and start working out again after like stopping for almost a year right now is to get an accountability partner, is
Okay.
someone who's gonna push you when you're not in the mood to push yourself. And instead of having like I don't wanna, and this happens to me sometimes when a coachee comes and tell me, well, coach, I wanna do this and I wanna do that. It's like, all right, let's break that into small goals instead of thinking that I'm gonna run a marathon by the end of the summer. Well, let's actually do that in small parts. I don't want to run a marathon, but I actually want to run a block for today and maybe 2 blocks of the next week and maybe 3 blocks of the next. So this is what I actually did to myself, and this is how I broke the whole thing into small parts. I don't want to work out for 1 hour every day. I want to start with two or twice actually a week, and I'm gonna do it only for 20 minutes. And the next week, I'm gonna build up on that momentum and go on. And I can say that it's been a month now, and I'm actually working out twice a week for 20 minutes only. And yeah, I'm just trying to keep up with that. So break it into small chunks, and you can go on with it.
Powerful. David, already you said that you took the tip from your mom. Don't say it. The wind might change.
Yeah, I love that quote, by the way. I love that quote. I'm writing it down. Don't say it.
Powerful. Say that again to us, David. We want to keep that as a nugget.
Yeah. So basically, if you are in a situation where you're saying something that's negative or positive, be aware that if the wind changes, it will stay like that forever. It becomes permanent. So don't be careful what you say, because when the wind changes, guess what? It sticks.
Love it.
But I wanted to share another. You were asking earlier about how do you actually stop something. Now, when I was at boarding school, and basically, I started to get this phobia of having to there is a name for it. I'm not sure what the name is, but if you had an article, an item like a pen or anything, you would have to put it down in a certain direction. And if you closed a tap, you had to close it a certain number of times. And you started to have this belief that if you didn't do it like this, then something bad would happen.
Yeah, it's an obsessive compulsive disorder.
Correct. And I had this thing. And it was getting to me. And when I was now in matric, that was my final year of school, I realized, and then in the following year, I had to go to the army. I realized in my own mind that I had to get rid of this thing. I had to stop it. And what happened was we were on holiday in a place called Hermanus, and there's a bridge that goes from Hermanus. When you leave Hermanus, you go over this bridge, and then you go up to the highway, and then you drive home, right? And I made the decision beforehand that when I went over that bridge, I would make an absolute effort to stop doing what I was doing. And I went over that bridge. My dad was driving, the family was driving in the car, and I went over that bridge and I suddenly said, okay, that's it. And every time after that I had the compulsiveness to actually do one of these things, I stopped myself and I didn't do it. And I basically self-healed myself through actually making a decision that after a certain event, which was crossing the river, I was leaving everything behind and I wasn't going to carry it forward. And
so
I must say, it saved me. Hey? That really saved me, because if I'd gone into the army as I did with that, carrying that, I don't know what would have happened. But I made that decision, and it was very, very powerful. And even now today, where I've crossed that river many times, when I've gone over it again, I've said, I left it there. And I keep on remembering it. And if any of you go to Hermanus and you cross that bridge, you'll know where it is. There's a wine farm on the left now. But go down.
We all are crossing our bridges every day. That's such a beautiful thing.
You know the bridge I'm talking about. But yeah, that was a very powerful thing for me. To make that self-decision, just to leave it behind. But there was an event attached to it. It was the crossing of the bridge.
Wow.
Crossing of the river.
Powerful. This has been such an engaging conversation, and we just scratched the surface, about the word judgment, and we've looked at how there are two sides to the coin on judgment. It's reaching a decision and making an informed conclusion. We've looked at the judgment quotient. How do you raise to judgment? Okay, how should you raise to judgment in situations and circumstances? So I will find we're going to come back to this again, ladies and gentlemen. We will keep talking about this until it changes us and it changes the world. But I want to take final thoughts, from every coach in the room. If you do send your questions after now, don't forget we will be following the conversation and be responding to you as we progress, even after now. But Mularo, final words for you on the subject.
Geez. I think self-love for me has helped me look at situations and refrain from quickly judging or quickly reacting to situations and judging others, and exposure to different things and different people and different cultures and different countries has helped me have a different view of so many things that before I was well-traveled, I'm not as well-traveled, but before I traveled out of my own cocoon, in terms of my thoughts and physically, there is a benefit of traveling physically and experiencing other cultures. These exposures have helped me appreciate putting myself in somebody else's shoes. And sometimes we tend to think we are excusing the person from what we flag as bad behavior. But I have learned that it helps me be a better human, because I also understand I do have flaws of my own, which I may minimize, but may be very serious for someone else. So I encourage those that I coach and I interact with that even if you can't physically travel, learn about different cultures, different races, different countries, why they do what they do, and what is the history behind it. Then you will understand what you're experiencing, and hopefully that will help you be the better human. There is value in taking the high road because that way you don't carry too many scars in your body and in your heart. So those are my
Beautiful.
thoughts.
Self love, powerful, powerful, powerful final words from Mulalo, all the way from South Africa. But Z, parting shot.
Oh, well, I loved what Molalo said. I just, you summed it up really, really well. For me, just be open, be curious, and be empathetic. Because David and Molalo, I mentioned both the empathy and be empathetic for yourself first, and then for the others, and be the light in the dark world.
Hmm. Be curious.
Yes, be curious.
I'm gonna latch on to that. Be curious. So we got to hear from David and the energy coach in the room. Both of you are going to send a parting shot because we already have both of you, and we'll take the benefit. So Dave,
All right. I'm going to start with Wilhelm. Wilhelm, go for it.
Yeah,
parting shot, darling.
thank you very much. I always think like judgment and blaming. It boils down to blaming, and
Mm,
blaming is one of the biggest energy draining factors. Blaming
Mm,
actually stands for be lame. The moment when you blame, either blaming yourself or somebody else, you take your energy away. Because if I
mm,
say I'm not, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, or whatever, I can't do this, then I in effect blame myself because I'm not good enough, and I take my energy away.
mm,
So I just sit back and yeah, I can't do anything. Or on the other side, you can say to yourself, but what can I do in this situation? What can I do? The moment when you say, what can I do? It is as if you get energy and you stand up, take action and do something. You actually put on your tackies so that you can just get to do something, but just stand up and do something, put on your tackies and move forward. So it gives you that energy. So I really try to think about, and I catch myself out. I blame circumstances and things, and then I become lame. So I must
mm,
stop that and listen. What can I do in this circumstances, in this difficulty that stand in front of me, and also not blaming other people, because the moment when I blame them, I take their energy away, because the only thing that they say is, "Okay, sorry," and
mm.
that's sorry, that's nothing, no energy, nobody moves forward, you see. So energy is everything, and
mm.
that's from my my side. I'm the energy
Powerful.
coach.
Beautiful. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you,
But
Helen. Powerful. Take the word.
I
When
loved it.
you
You
blame
are
people or
really.
you blame yourself, it drains your energy. Helen is
Yes.
an energy coach, so that's a powerful perspective about the things that drain your energy. Thank you so
Yes.
much. How about you, Dave? Parting shot.
For me, I think whenever you judge somebody, think about, well, in the process of that judgment, think about how you actually see yourself in that person.
Mm,
Um, and if someone else is judging you, it's their stuff, not yours.
Mm,
And I think
mm.
that's if you can take those two takeaways away, I think that's going to really help. And also remember, the wind changes, it sticks.
It's
that's the quote of the day.
Yeah, speaking of which, we got several people join us in today. Abiola Shore Mekun is in the room and she shared her story. And then we have Moyiko Sola who's also saying in the quotes, be careful what you say. When the wind changes, it sticks. So it's really sticking out here, Dave. And then Abiola shared her story. She talked about how she judged herself because someone swindled her, and she thought, "How could I let this person get away with this?" But you know what? When you trust people and they betray your trust, the trouble is not you. The trouble is the person who took your trust for granted. Keep
100%.
trusting. And and then we have Steph Red here who is saying hello to every one of us. We're saying hi, everybody. And those who are on the call, but they didn't introduce themselves. We love you. We appreciate you. What's my parting shot? Well, I think we are all judges. Just like many people said in the room today, your mind is just wired to reach a judgment. So here's what you do. You can be a judge, doesn't make you have to judge. So just in case, if you can, do not judge. But where you can't and you must judge, judge fairly.
Wow.
That's good.
Love it, Charles. Love it.
So just to
Fantastic.
tell you, we're from the High Coaches Network. We come together to have conversations like this that we hope will drive change across the world. And we're sitting on the subject of judgment. We're going to come back again and talk about it from different perspectives till the whole world looks at it and takes something out of it for the benefit. We believe that it only takes a spark to get the whole fire going again. Thank you so much. Coaches, thank you for doing
Thank
this.
you. It was really
Thank
great,
you, Charles.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
Yes, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you next time.
Yeah, bye-bye, everyone.